Okay, guys, welcome back to another backtesting session, backtesting lecture. I couldn't produce a lecture yesterday because of technical difficulties, but we're back today, and there's been some amendments. Right, so my sessions indicator, I realized I was making a big mistake. I used to mark Asia from 6 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock a.m. I mean to 3 o'clock a.m. But I was supposed to mark it till 2 a.m. because 2 a.m. forms part of London session. And then I used to mark London session from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. But I marked it back to from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. This changes things drastically because as ICT traders, time is more important than price. So it's going to change dramatically the way we look at things going forward. Right, so I don't know, does my screen record when it's full screen? I really hope so. Well, I hope it's recording full screen. Well, let's move on to London session. I feel like this new change of timing is going to present a lot of opportunity, especially given London session. So let's say, for example, okay, here, right, price was swept, but there was no intention to move higher. So this candle is now attempting another shot. And here, okay, so I skipped an hour candle way too much. So that's obviously London session. So London session does this move. So generally, I'd want to see a move away. You see, now the mistake I would have made was that, remember, since I used to mark that London session starts at 3, I would have marked this and I would have expected this eye to get taken. Right now, not that it's all bad, but it paints a very different narrative. Once we understand that this was a sweep that happened in London session, it allows the market structure shift to be framed way differently, right? So from here, we have the market structure shift. Price is already engaged. We can now mark a standard deviation, right? I'm sure the 5 minute also has a shift. Okay. The 5 minute has a shift from this deviation point here. So, but I'm going to take the most closest shift, which is here, and then we're going to see if we can get it set up, right? So it's 350. We've got break of structure here. We've also got a break of structure here, but I'm going to take the closer one. And then we're going to aim for the -2 deviation and see if that births off anything new. All right, here at the -2, we've got this fair value gap. So let's see what we get as a result here. Let's place the trade. And let's see it run. And that's out. Why does this position look so familiar? Right, for some reason this position looks very familiar. I'm not gonna say it came from the same. I don't know if this is the same session we backtested last time because this -2 fair value gap looks awfully familiar. Right, allow me to judge, but it looks awfully familiar. Well, on the 5 minute, it seems we take this low at 350. So it's not offering us a viable position here. Let's see if it's attempting to just retest that gap. Yep. So it seems what it was mostly interested in is this market structure shift over here, right? So the entry was not wrong, it was just off timing. It wanted the original market structure shift. Obviously, we'd aim at the high, aiming at the -2 deviation. And let's see if we're gonna get a TP here. And we get a TP, right? So this is one of the most dangerous setups. I haven't experienced this yet. If there was a way for me to be convinced somehow that this was going to happen, I don't know how I take it, right? Because this is as clear as day, right? We've got this candle close, we've got 350. We're just going to continue down. The 5 minute did not bring much to the table either, because if we did take off this shift, right, Okay, we had 345, so we wouldn't have trusted that move. But then we do have the break of structure here at 350. We do get taken out. I think the only savior here would be a re-entry, right? Realistically speaking, the only thing that could save us here is a re-entry. Otherwise, it's a no-no, right? Maybe here at 310, but there was no market structure shift, so it's still not convincing. The only thing that could have possibly saved here was a re-entry, right? Maybe also by the time 350 hit, measuring a equilibrium range and being able to enter off the equilibrium range, right? Seeing that there was no rebalance, right? If we take from that range over to this range, no rebalance. Over to this range, no rebalance. I mean, over to this range, then there's this rebalance. So taking from here, obviously, in considering that fair value gap and that. So this one isn't, it's actually a tricky one. I can't lie. I would not be very fond of this price action. I honestly cannot lie. But in all technicality, the direction is a win. The entry is just very off, right? So to speak. So just allow me a second real quick. Okay. Um okay. So this trade was, it was okay. It wasn't terrible. Don't get me wrong. This was a great trade. The only difference was the entry point. The entry point was not favorable, but the overall direction was perfect. Right? So now, based on information, we have this sweep that occurs here. On the 15-minute, do we have a confident market structure shift? We do. So it would be wise to print a standard deviation. And looking at long-term price action, this is the closest to the negative 2, 2.5. I don't want to aim too far. Whoops. So here, now we just want to see how New York's price action prints. Okay, so here we get sweeps, get some more sweeps. All right, sweep over there, sweep over there, market structure shift over here. So normally you'd want to print another standard deviation. The negative 2 of this standard deviation is pointing down here. And I do not like being over ambitious when it comes to target points. Whoa, 930 just rips through, takes -4, takes the -2. It's crazy work out here, man. This is the setups you do not wanna be missing, honestly, right? But then it comes to that point where you're reading, right? I think we've done this session before. Like all these price points look so familiar, right? One thing I know is that even though it reached the -4 deviation on this, it still kept printing downwards. Like what I can remember, at least, if I'm not mistaken, this is the same. Yeah, just keep printing, bro. Like I don't know what was going on this day, 3rd of February. I don't know, bro. The markets were probably just tripping, but this was great. Like in terms of PA, this was good. Right, we've got that market size shift. Did price ever revisit? No, it just cooked off the momentum. Right, and then we have this gap here. I remember I had a rule back when I was building my model in June. It said that you want to use the closest PD array to enter. But this is a 15-minute trade, so that PD array wouldn't be so viable, right? Maybe I would consider it from this angle, right? But it's just at 9 o'clock. Like, this is not the time that we trade off of. Maybe if we were looking at 850, right, after that market structure shift, that would have been a different story. But we don't look at 850, right? The reason why I don't look at 850 is because you can have a trade on 850 and then 950 will sweep where your stop loss is, because usually your stop loss, it's liquidity, right? So for some reason 8 o'clock trades always get swept at 9 o'clock, 9:30 price action. So it's why I generally don't trust it. low resistance liquidity, a fair value gap. Let's see what we're working with. Take other projection upward. Now we've got a market size to shift. That's a big one, I can't lie. Let's see what 950 is gonna print. All right, we've got 950. It just shies that fair value gap over there. We do enter a 5-minute fair value gap though, but it shies that other fair value gap. Judging by the range, if we had to enter off this, we'd obviously print the standard deviation. Yeah, we forgot to print the standard deviation. Let me look at that. Forgot to print the standard deviation. We do have sell side. Yep, -2 deviation is looking at these lows. 2.5. Yeah, we're looking at these lows over here. So for me, it would be wiser to enter off. I know it's ambitious, but entering off the inversion. Right, we didn't get taken out. That's glory to God, and that's TP. Let's go. That's TP, bro. That's TP, bro. I'm not no ICT who's gonna come here nonchalantly and teach and what. I'm gonna get excited for everyone, bro. That's TP. So off this inversion, that was great. Off this inversion fair value gap, boom. Right, if we waited for that break of structure to occur, right there, we would have had no entry. So that's the thing. Refer to the higher time frame. You do get these situations, trust me, where the lower time frame won't take a fair value gap and it will go. Right? But that's because the higher time frame already did its job. Right? The 5-minute already tapped the fair value gap wall, closed outside of it. And the 15-minute also tapped a fair value gap of its own. There's no reason for you to want a 3-minute as well to tap the fair value gap. You know, your 3 minutes is for you to just enter, right? You don't want to be having a many more conditions, because if you were a 5-minute trader, this fair value gap would have been all you needed, right? It would have been boom, 5-minute, boom, like that, and then you would be aiming at this low, right? If you were greedy, I don't know, you would probably print out your deviation, seeing we have the market structure shift, and praying that it reaches -2. Let's see. No, it does not reach -2. So that would have been a sad outcome for you. So again, like I said, you don't want to be overextending the deviation. You also want to have the earliest occurrence of a market structure shift, and you want to have reliable levels to be working with that are within the -2 to 2.5. You know, overextending, like marking out this deviation again, is going to print a new leg, and you don't want to be over ambitious when you're aiming. You really want to be in and out as early as possible. And yeah, this is the best I've ever seen. For my I need to take a picture for my best friend to show him that the 350 macro is in action. Now I'll probably send him a snippet of this video, but yeah, this is pretty much it. Let's move on to New York session. Okay, so seems 8 o'clock. Greedily grabs that sell liquidity. We are still actually coming off this 4-hour gap. Like what I spoke about last backtesting session, giving the respect to the higher time frame is very, very, very important. Very important. This liquidity was not taken, right? So this market structure shift would not, in a sense, be valid. We'd still be counting on the original shift that occurred here, right? But I don't like using hourly legs, so I'm gonna keep relying on these 15-minute levels to do their thing. This higher didn't really take out any liquidity, not that I know of course, but in a sense also it did interact with this level. Is there anything reliable? Yes, there's a 5-minute fair value gap price sweeps thing. but I generally want more information, but judging that I can judging that I can, what do you call this, judging by the fact that we're in a cell system already, I would be very much inclined to sellable price action. Okay, price takes out a low. All right, does it take out a low in particular, or does it just spike out of nowhere? Excellent question. There is this low here on the 5 minutes, right? But then we need to also pay mind to the overall bias, right? So 5:30. So yeah, it's really difficult to determine where we want to go, but obviously we do know where we want to go, and that is lower. So like I said, having a preconceived bias is important, and I think in this case, having that standard deviation printed -2 to 2.5 is necessary, but this range is so small. Is it even worth the shot? More money's money. No, it's not worth the shot. The RR is incredibly low. Right? Right? It's still, yes, it gives you TP, but the RR is not worth that risk. So yes, you have price dancing here. There's another 1050 that presents itself, and yeah, price can keep printing. So in this case, with New York session, there wouldn't be much of a trade, right? So we move on to the next day, right? Understanding also that like there's not much information, as you could see when I was already discussing it with you guys, there wasn't much to go off of, so it wasn't really trustworthy to be putting my faith in that setup. You know, we were a bit shaky in terms of direction because there was no leg that was formed, nothing solid was printed. So yeah,